Good to see so many folks here this morning. There's just for everybody. There's about 40 people online as far as I can tell, and maybe about the same in person. So it's great to kind of feel ourselves as one giant community, even though we can't see everybody. And we'll begin with the Four Quarters chant, which I believe is on page 30 of your chant books. And I just put it in the chat for all of you Zoomers. Am I right about the page number? Yeah, okay. Now let us make the four boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. And remembering that meditation practice is simple. May not always be easy, but the instructions are always simple. And that is to feel into this body and understand what it's like to be a human being. What is it like to have a body right now? What does that feel like? What's the actual felt visceral experience of having a body? Can we feel the heaviness? Maybe the weight of the body on the cushion or chair? Can we feel the uprightness, the strength of the spine, the muscles of the back and neck? Can this body feel the contact, the hardness of the earth? All of this earth element. Can we feel the air quality, the breath, expanding the abdomen, contracting? Can we feel the breath without trying to control it in any way? Not trying to make it deep or long, just letting the body breathe, do what it knows how to do. Perhaps we feel the fire element, temperature, heat or coolness, the warm places where the clothing, the temperature feels just right. Maybe the coolness of the fingertips. Or the slight cool feeling of the breath entering the nostrils or the mouth. Or the water element, cohesion, maybe the stickiness of the mouth. Or maybe the palms feel clammy. Or the slight stickiness of the skin. And notice too the mind's simple interest in knowing the body like this. The simple interest when the mind's not bombarded by worry or planning. But just knows how to be interested in the body in the present moment. What's it like to have a body? Having a body's like this, it feels like this. Is it possible to be interested and also relaxed? Not trying too hard, but allowing awareness to strengthen or weaken as it will. Being content to just keep remembering the body, not trying to be perfect. It's okay if the mind gets visited by boredom or some kind of fatigue or apathy. Don't have to be afraid of those feelings or experiences. We also don't have to do anything about them. We'll see if they can be there and just return to the body. Where do I feel it? The stickiness of the armpits. Slight breathe or movement of air on the face. Body that knows how to breathe on its own. Resting in the simple interest of the body. Feeling the contentedness of not being complicated. Perhaps it can be safe enough Just keep noticing. We'll continue like this in silence for a while longer. a minute to stretch if you'd like. Good to be back. I'll be stepping in for Mark Nunberg many of these Sunday mornings, along with our other wonderful team of Dharma teachers from time to time, to give Mark a little more time to heal at home, which he's not home yet, so he's still in the hospital. So this being a holiday for some, I thought I would reflect a little on gratitude today. And not gratitude in a romantic idea of we should always be grateful, but kind of what did the Buddha say about gratitude and how does it make sense in our lives? And over the past few days or week or so, I've really just been touched by the generosity of the Buddha, actually. And yeah, just kind of imagining his life and teachings and all the, we know some things about his life. We know that his mother passed away in the first 7 days of his life. We know that he was raised by his aunt, Pajapati, who's a little representation of her right here. We also know that he generously offered what he learned to people for about 40 years when he could have just sat under a tree and enjoyed it, but he didn't. We know that the first time he tried to describe what he had learned in his own journey as a student, he messed up. Yeah. And he said something that didn't really resonate with the person he was talking to. And like, I'm the fully awakened one or something like that. And the person was probably like, yeah, okay. And kept walking. So he didn't hit the mark there. And then he tried again. And, then things started to click. We also know that he was really good at adjusting his teachings for different people, different times. He would talk to one person this way and another person slightly different. We also know that the Noble Eightfold Path is the full scope of teachings that he offered. And we know that it covers our whole life, nothing left out. I find that such a beautiful thing. That the Noble Eightfold Path wasn't meant to be a statement about what we must do or how we must do it, but rather like a very pragmatic gift. Like, friends, if you want to be free, be sensitive in all areas of your life and see what you can learn from that. It really touches me some moments, like the gift that keeps giving, because it's not easy to be a sensitive human being in this world and our lives, and there's so many ways that our minds find ways to avoid sensitivity, like all the views in our minds, my own mind, I'm sure in yours too, about the way the mind constructs opinions about anything and denies what might be useful or denies truth. We hold on to this or that, or, well, this isn't right for me, or I'm not like that, and this doesn't make sense in this way. But yet the path is still the path. And it begins and ends with wise view. This invitation to widen our to suspend our constructions about how things should be or how we want them to be, and actually deepen into a capacity to see beyond what's obvious. And this is where we keep learning and growing. So it's actually, we could conceptualize the path, the whole path. The Buddha's generosity in offering this was like showing us how to be learners, not and avoiding getting stuck in any place of what we think it should be or where we think we've got it down. But just the willingness in this very integrated way to keep learning through the sensitive heart. What can we learn about what's useful, about what's skillful, about what's onward leading, about what we can learn beyond what's obvious, what's visible. The truth of change is like this. The truth of impermanence is like this. We sometimes see it, we sometimes don't. But the learning is like we keep orienting in the direction of something that's lawful. Or the truth of nature is like that. We might not see that we're all just these organisms of causes and conditions that come together like this. Our minds are like that. We might take it personally when we catch our mind being judging or blaming. Oh, what's wrong with me? Yeah, I'm supposed to be a meditator here. But we forget, like, oh, this is just a coming together of causes and conditions. So even if we feel like we're in pain in some moment over what we feel or experience, there's still this truth that's lingering out there for us to learn something about, right? We hold it in that light, like, oh yeah, may not totally get this right now, but it's still there for me. The gift that keeps giving. There's a wonderful poem in Christina Feldman's book, Compassion. Just about what it's like to be a learner on the path. I'll read a little bit of Christina's words and then this poem by Kabir. She says, we often alternate between extremes of self-obsession and self-neglect. We tend to think far more about what we hate in our bodies, minds, and hearts than what we honor and respect. Limitless thought and preoccupation can be generated in the search to rid ourselves of our failings and flaws, but it's an endless project. What we hate in ourselves, we also fear. We think that unless we dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly to the path of self-perfection, we will get overwhelmed by our flaws. We will be worthless. As Kabir put it, friend, please tell me what I can do about this world. I keep spinning out of myself. I gave up on expensive clothes and bought a robe, but I noticed one day the cloth was well woven. So I bought some burlap, but I still throw it elegantly over my left shoulder. I stopped being a sexual elephant, and now I discover that I'm angry a lot. I finally gave up anger, and now I notice that I'm greedy all day. I worked hard at dissolving the greed, and now I'm proud of myself. When the mind wants to break its link with the world, it still holds on to one thing. Kabir says, listen, my friend, there are very few that find the path. I love that. We keep, the path is here for us to keep learning, to keep feeling into, not to somehow get it and hold on to it and always know where it is or what it is, but we just see if we can learn from our life through our sensitivity, through that heart that knows how to be real, to connect, and then the heart that forgets that all the time, and remembers it again. It's like remembering this body, then we forget it. Then we have sometimes a real sensitive connection with the body, and sometimes it's quite gross. But we just keep orienting what it's like to be a human being with this body in this moment of our lives. And in this way, when we orient as a student on the path, then everything becomes our teacher. Every moment becomes our teacher. And so I think my intuition is that, the Buddha talked quite a bit about gratitude, and not because he wants us to be good people, right? Because everything in life we can be grateful. We can be grateful that everything in life is our teacher, right? We might not feel particularly grateful for this kind of teacher in this moment, but we can at some point remember that everything in our life is our teacher, and we can have a broader view that welcomes these moments, even the complicated ones, because there's something to learn here, and because it helps us find the path again. So that pragmatic offering of the path to us as students is that it's always there, right? And we can enter in so many places. Sometimes it makes sense to enter in the place of developing strong ethics in the world and understanding our own social responsibility and commitment. And other times it makes sense to enter into the path as a place of seclusion, right? Where we're really interested in how the internal shapes the external. And there are so many other places. But we have to take the teachings and not just see them through the Buddhist life, right? But we have to see them through our own. And when we start to take the teachings in and integrate them into our own life and to the way things are for us in each moment, right? Given the real conditions on the ground, then we take responsibility for translating the teachings in this real subjective way, that can be a support to us. So the Buddha offered quite a lot in terms of his teachings on gratitude. So I want to talk a little bit about being grateful for our parents and our caregivers, and expanding from parents to caregivers is one way of making the teaching practical for each of us in our lives. And this sort of came up for me today and over the past week because we're here at the end of the year, and it's a time of, like I spoke about last week, just a time of gathering often with our friends, our family, and our loved ones, and it's complicated, right? So I thought, yeah, gratitude it's complicated for me too. Yeah, because I love people who are complicated, and I am one of those complicated people, right? And I'm sure you are too. So there's a place in the scriptures where the Buddha talked about the value of being grateful for our caregivers. So I'm going to read that, but I changed a little bit of the pronouns and the language to be a little more inclusive of caregivers and the many different kinds of family relationships that we have. That's what the Buddha says. I tell you, practitioners, there are two or more people who are not easy to repay. Which two or more? Your parents. Even if you were to carry one parent on one shoulder and another parent on the other shoulder for 100 years, and were to look after them by anointing, massaging, bathing, and rubbing their limbs, and, this is graphic, they were to defecate and urinate right there on your shoulders, like many of us as babies might have done, you would not in that way pay or repay your parents. Why is that? Parents do much for their children. They care for them, they nourish them, they introduce them to this world. But anyone who rouses their unbelieving parents, settles and establishes them in virtue, rouses their stingy parents and establishes them in generosity, rouses their foolish parents, settles and establishes them in discernment. To this extent, one pays and repays one's parents. Yeah. And whether you're a child or a parent or both, you know, we have complicated relationships with our caregivers. And for me, my parents were also accompanied by other adults who took part in some of the caregiving. And so I don't think the Buddha is saying that we have to proselytize or somehow tell our parents what they did wrong or, show them the way. But really, like what rouses our caregivers, what might rouse our caregivers is simply our embodiment of the path, simply our willingness to keep being students, and the way that we model that to anybody we love. And I think one of the reasons, like the Buddha made a lot out of taking care of our parents or appreciating our parents, even though it's a complicated relationship and no doubt complicated for many of us probably in this room, because there's so much grit there, right? Probably the most complicated of relationships in our lives. And that grittiness points right back to the learning. So even if it feels like gratitude, well, that's a stretch for me right now, right? Given the circumstances in my life, or given the complicated conditions in this particular relationship with this particular caregiver, it's a stretch right now. Remember, the path keeps reminding us about the possibility of what is beyond what's obvious to us. We may be full of needs that feel beyond what we can touch with gratitude, right? And so part of being in relationship is also about taking care of that, right? Taking the time and space we need to take care of ourselves. Yeah. My partner has had this little analogy for years. She would say, like, I need an appropriate distance in which to love this person. And sometimes that distance is real close, like not much. Like I can love you when we're sitting right together and it feels fine. And sometimes I need a lot more space than that, right? Sometimes that might mean that I don't need to see this person. And sometimes she would say, like, right now you can be in my home, and another occasion you might be far out of the city, maybe out of the state. You might have to be that far right now in order for me to find the appropriate distance to love. And I always thought that, I've carried that with me for years because it feels so wise, right? That's the appropriate response. The heart that is willing to accept the conditions that are right here makes space for all the different iterations, of love, and all the ways in which we need to take care of ourselves in order to find ourselves in order to not throw each other out of our hearts. Yeah. So we can expand our definition of parents and include caregivers. We can also include our spiritual guides, therapists, school teachers, anybody that's offered something to us in terms of helping us learn. Yeah. Our lives have been supported by so many people. We actually wouldn't be here today without those people, right? And in some ways, like, the learning has no doubt not been easy, right? But those difficult moments, for many of us, suffering brought us to the path, right? And without those moments of deep woundedness, being grateful might be a stretch, but we can acknowledge that those wounds were the cause or the condition for us to learn something beyond what the ordinary mind could see. I feel inspired by that. I feel inspired by being a student there. I have I had a professor when I was a struggling first year college student at community college and where I grew up, and a lot of going on in my life at that point, and it was difficult, and my mind didn't have the space for school, and I did not like history at the time. But this professor, I remember uh, hardly remembering a whole lot, and we were going to take a test. It was an essay kind of thing. And I remember going in and getting the essay questions from her and just scribbling down everything that I could remember all around the page, just all the facts that would help me. So just so that I could relax and write. And she was very complimentary about what I did. She gave me she said, "Oh, that was a great strategy to remember stuff and keep writing." And she said something like, you have an analytical mind and you can have prolific ideas. And it was the first kind of time that I thought, I can learn something that I don't like. And actually, I learned to love it. I probably could have been a history major because I loved it that much, and only because of that class, really. And I found I was in touch with some, at a time where I felt like it was so hard and I didn't feel that capable. I was in touch with some inner goodness, like, oh, there's still some strength, right? To be able to analyze ideas, to be able to write them down, to make some sense, right? To think about something that isn't about my own suffering in this moment or my family's suffering. And it really left a lasting impression. Yeah. So when I think of caregivers, I often include her. Yeah. And I feel grateful for that moment. Lots of people have shaped us, haven't they? I mean, just take a moment and allow whoever wants to be here with you to be here with you. Parents, caregivers, teachers, maybe chosen family, therapists. And we can reflect on all the ways in which we've received something from them. Like even in complicated scenarios, like this is one of the Buddhist teachings. Even when things are hard, it's beautiful, and we see lots of people model this for us. It's beautiful to be able to find something to be grateful for, or to be able to touch a moment of joy. Like some of you saw the pictures of Mark in the hospital, like just he really enjoys the sunlight on his face, sitting on that bench in front of the window, and the body's struggling, but just to be able to appreciate that simple warmth of sunlight, that's a gift of sensitivity. That's a gift of practice of this returning to being mindful moment by moment by moment and being integrated in our path. Yeah. In a way in which we can receive more wholly with a wider view. Wise view is like this. We just broaden the scope of what we receive and how we receive it. One of my caregivers was a neighbor to my parents early on, and she ended up being a babysitter for my sister and I. And then I would ride my bike to her house after school and just along a caregiver all throughout my life. And her house was a real refuge for me. Like she was always welcoming. And I felt her she was a sturdy woman, like kind of a sturdy body, and she swore a lot, She was gruff, right? And I always felt like I was taken care of there. So I like to go there. Right? I felt at ease. There were rules. She was pretty good about making sure we followed them. And she was kind of mean, not to me, but that was in her too. And so this, the relationships that we have with our loved ones and our caregivers and even people that we esteem, right? Our children, our parents, they're just complicated. We love complicated human beings. So it's important that we are willing to receive all of it. The teaching isn't about romanticizing anybody or anything. The teaching's on gratitude. It's about going, oh yeah, I see this, and this is painful, right? And there's this too. What is it like to have gratitude for people who are imperfect and may have even caused harm? So we're being clear with ourselves about what has been unskillful and may continue to be unskillful, and connect with and reclaim what's beneficial and onward leading, which is our capacity to be grateful and to find moments of peace, joy, happiness, even in the middle of this great challenge. And the sensitive heart that is met with difficulty, the response of a heart that's wide enough and spacious enough is that of compassion. So when the harm is too fresh, it may not be the right time for gratitude. We can have compassion for ourselves, right, with a simple wish to take care of this heart right now. Because no matter how we shake it, we live in a relational world. We are always in relationship with ourselves and with each other, with the earth, with history, with what's moving, with future generations. So this interdependent reality, relational reality, we're always swimming in. Right? So it's an invitation to learn where the skillfulness is. Where does the skillfulness lie as we receive this interconnectedness of all things? We're always going to be in relationship with our caregivers. And so where is the skillfulness in this moment? Where do we find that? What's useful? And there's an art here and a responsibility. And we'll learn how to step in and step out in order to find the skillful ways of relating. But the interconnectedness will always be there. And for me, this brings us right to the truth of nature, or anatta, that life is an expression of all the causes and conditions that have contributed. There's no need for I, me, and mining. We just live into the learning that we receive through this interconnected web of reality that we swim in. And feeling into our lineages, our own personal lineages, can be a way of doing that. Like, oh yeah, this lineage I was born into, what can I learn here? And our learnings will all be slightly different based on our own personal lineages. Which makes the moment really rich, yeah? And not something that we can apply a script to or a set of rules to, right? It would be nice if the Buddha gave us a set of rules, wouldn't it? Like, here, friends, you do these things in this exact way and you'll be all good, right? You'll find the deepest freedom and happiness, and everything will be roses and unicorns. and lollipops or something like that. It's not like that, yeah. What he offered was the gift of his own practice and this invitation to keep returning, to keep looking for a path as a learner. Yeah. What he offered was some support that helps us live into our own lives with our own conditions just the way they are. Right? And that script would be, if we had a script or a set of rules, we would just apply that and they would stay the same, right? But that's not like that. And so we have to accept all the changing conditions of our lives moment by moment by moment. So when we look for what's skillful and how to relate and how to find gratitude, how to give enough space for this heart to find a sense of gratitude, right? We always accept that this is a brand new moment. And what might have made sense yesterday might not make sense today, right? What does this heart need to live into some reclaim what's ours, right? Reclaim that feeling of gratitude and that tendency towards compassion. What do we need right now for that? We always find that in the present moment. I want to read a poem, but I want to give a fair warning too. It's a poem that a person wrote about caregiving a child during wartime. So if this doesn't feel like the right medicine for you today, you can either mute yourself if you're on Zoom for 2 or 3 minutes, or you can just stand up and walk outside the room for a couple minutes. It's illustrative, but it's not, I wouldn't say, I don't know what I'd say. It's that illustrative, yeah. Joseph Fasano is the poet's name. No, we are not going to die. The sounds you hear knocking the windows and chipping the paint from the ceiling, that is a game the world is playing. Our task is to crouch in the dark as long as we can and count the beats of our own hearts. Good, like that. Lay your hand on my heart and I'll lay mine on yours. Which one of us wins is the one who loves the game the most while it lasts. Yes, it is going to last. You can use your ear instead of your hand, here, on my heart. Why is it beating faster? For you, that's all. I always wanted you to be born, and so did the world. No, those aren't a stranger's footsteps in the house. Yes, I'm here. We're safe. Remember chess? Remember hide and seek? The song your mother sang. Let's sing that one. She's still with us, yes, but you have to sing without making a sound. She'd like that. No, those aren't bootsteps. Sing louder. Those aren't bootsteps. Let me show you how I cried when you were born. Those aren't bootsteps. Close your eyes, like chess, like hide and seek. When the game is done, you get another life. Powerful, yeah. And perhaps resonant for the times that we're living in. Yeah. And such a beautiful example of living in the present moment, right? And not following rules, but just offering what we can right now, right? Just offering, what is it? What does it mean to care, to love right now? And perhaps there's something in that we can learn, both as a caregiver, right? And someone who's been given care in our life by lots of people in lots of places. Thank you for your kind attention this morning, and I'm really wishing you lots of moments of learning and lots of moments of compassion as you move through the uh, holiday season and however you celebrate in whatever way you do. And let's see. Jenny and Tim are here. If there are folks in the room who want to stay for small groups, Jenny and Tim will help you get yourself set up, and I'm going to transfer host to Lucy in just a moment for small groups online.